All right, so I'm here at RefCom with Kynan Fontenot with MIAM Valves, and he's going to give us a quick little demo of some of their innovative technology, ergo INNO blank. So I wanted you to give me the opportunity to help our viewers kind of understand your nomenclature, INNO MAT, INNO CON, INNO switch.
Of course. So the MIAM company actually manufactures a wide range of specialty products or innovative products, and that's really where it comes about. So we have the INNO complete valve, we have the INNO switch complete switching system, and of course we have our INNO MAT device, which is what I wanted to give you a little bit more detail on.
Yeah, so let's step right over here and take a little close up to the INNO MAT. This is where the magic happens. As I understand from your colleague, this is innovative and it's automatic. So that's where the MAT comes from,
Yes.
MAT. So describe to me exactly how this thing works.
Okay, well, first and foremost, it's a lift and turn single point gearing system. So what we do is we actually can install this on our lift and turn plug valve. We also retrofit onto customers' existing lift and turn metal seated plugs. And it's very, very unique in how it operates. It's a cylinder system. The interior unit right here, where you see this axle.
Yep.
That's what we call our stem cylinder, and it has a stem connected at the bottom.
Okay.
The interior cylinder here that has the ramp or groove in it is called the gear cylinder and connects to the gear head here. And the exterior cylinder here is what we call our stroke limiter or our guide cylinder. It's actually pretty simple. What we do is we actually turn via the gear, the ramp on the interior here, and you can see it rotating. And as it rotates, the bottom of that ramp is creating lift in the axle.
Yeah,
here.
you can kind of see like a little bit of a curvature there, yeah?
That's exactly right.
So this is for a lift and turn valve. So this is
Correct.
different than some of the people who are more familiar with the ball valve, which just rotates in place.
That's right.
This is a lift and turn valve, so you have to first lift it and pull it out of its seated position, and then rotate and then seat it back. So this mechanism is an attempt to do all that in one fluid motion.
That's exactly right. What it does is it actually allows the valve freedom of motion and prevents premature wear and tear on the seating surfaces of the plug and the body. And of course, we do that via the lift. So as you drop or run the ramp underneath the axle, it creates elevation. Once it's fully elevated, the angle will catch up.
Now we're doing the turning portion,
That's right. So we're in the rotational phase. Once the axle meets the stroke limiter here, so it cannot go any further quarter, the top of the same groove here is going to come across the top of that axle and force it into the downward position. So what you've had now is the lift, rotation, and drop. And again, we'll go in reverse, and you can see the bottom portion of the groove running underneath the axle, creating the lift, and then the angle catches and rotates at 90 degrees. And again, at the very end, the top of the angle runs across the top of the axle, creating the drop, forcing the plug down into the body, creating your shutoff.
And so what might not be obvious from the video, because we were kind of focusing on the mechanism, is that you're only rotating this one direction the whole stroke. So you have, the gearbox and the motor actuating one direction for open, the other direction for close. Everything happens in one actuator assembly.
That's right. It makes it very easy for not only manual applications, so you can send your technicians out there. It's a very simple, easy, manually operating unit. But more importantly, when you start to automate valves on your switch deck and you want to put actuators, keep your personnel safe or away from those areas as much as possible, it's very adept at actually having an actuator mount on and simply rotating and opening and closing your valve. You set your limits and your torque switches and you're good to go.
So this concept of a single lift turn actuator system is not necessarily very new. What were some of the technological hurdles you had to get around to make this a reliable and robust system?
That's a good point, or a good question. Originally, the the technology that's out there, more prevalent at least at this point, is older technology. It's probably 80 or 90 years old. So what we did was we developed something that would be much more simple via the simple cylinders and the grooving in the gear cylinder. The gear cylinder itself with the groove actually has different angles on the groove itself. So the lower the grade angle on the bottom creates additional force or really force capacity to elevate the plug, which is where you're going to need the most force. And then on the top part of the groove, it's actually a steeper angle, because when you're shoving the plug down, you need less force. So that was one really unique way.
So you basically kind of tweak the ramps so that you're providing the right force at the right time.
That's right. The unit actually is engineered to handle the actual torque curve, which is a crazy up and down type requirement for force or torque.
Okay.
So it's developed in such a way to do that. In fact, this is a smaller unit. This is what we would call an IM7. IM7 would be 7 tons of force capacity in the downward motion. It actually doubles on the lift. So
oh, wow. 14 tons. Yeah.
So on our bigger units, let's say on 24-inch overheads, we would use an IM50 typically. 50 tons of force down at its maximum. 100 tons of force in the lift. So, functionality is key. Reliability is there. Your plug is going to come up. And once it's elevated, of course, it doesn't take much once it's freed from the body, it's easy to rotate over.
How much is it actually lifting?
It really depends on the size of the valve and the port size itself, but generally speaking, we can have set the lift anywhere from a 1/4 inch to just over 1/2 inch.
Okay, interesting.
So, because of the designs of the valve, the tapered plug and the tapered body, it actually doesn't take very much once you elevate. In the bigger ones, we would have bigger lift, 1/2 inch. But once you get that elevation of 1/2 inch, you're free to rotate. And actually, what's a nice feature, when it lifts, even though you have 1/2 inch, you still have a relatively small gap. So as your purge steam comes into the system, your velocities at those sealing surfaces gets high, and it actually does a really good job
wiping the seats clean with the steam at the lower aperture.
That's it.
Interesting. So you passed over something really interesting that I want to make sure everybody caught on to. So, obviously you want this system to be attached to your valve, right? But this system is actually compatible to be retrofitted with pretty much anybody that makes a lift turn valve.
That's correct.
Is that a fair statement?
That is correct. We've had tremendous success in retrofitting onto existing clients' valves. It's an excellent way to help increase the reliability and the function of their product without having to go to the cost or expense and time delay of actually waiting on a complete new product. The way supply chain issues are now, cost is tremendous, delays are tremendous.
And is this something that you stock? So is this something that's kind of readily available? If somebody breaks one, you can just pull it off the shelf and send it to them in a hurry?
It is.
Oh,
we have inventory in the U.S. and we're trying to keep up.
Yeah.
So I've got our counterparts in Europe moving pretty quickly on the regular.
Okay, nice.
But it's a quick response way to be able to know that we have to do some other things with regard to measurements and fabrication of bracketry to be able to retro. But it's generally a pretty quick process.
Well, good. Well, thank you for giving us kind of this demonstration of what and how the INNO MAT is and how it works, because really for a long time, lift and turn valves, really the Achilles heel of that design was the turning mechanism. The valve itself is tried and true. It's one of the original valve designs in our industry. So this design is very robust, German engineering. And thank you, Kynan, for taking your time, showing us your technology, and we always appreciate it. Thank you for joining us at RefCom. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Evan.